Dan Allweiler is with us today. Sterling Financial Advisors, they sponsor our Friday show. And we have an interesting conversation to talk about today. We've touched on this before.
By the way, I'm missing your Hawaiian shirts on
I know.
during the summer.
I know. I got to get those back.
To our dress code here.
I know.
But
Yeah, you got an unbuttoned shirt.
I know, but normally you're in Hawaiian shirts during the summer.
That's
huh?
true. That's true. I love them. We touched on this before about how the market can react to a new president and different events.
Right.
And no matter what happens this time around, we are going to get someone new. And
love it or like it, right?
Love it or like it. So let's talk about how the markets may or may not react.
Well, it's interesting. As I prepared for this segment today, I started doing a little bit of research, and I found some things that surprised me, actually, that I thought, because generally speaking, you look at the Democratic Party as very strong on social issues and things like that. The Republican Party is business friendly.
Right.
And so you would think that when you have a Republican Congress or Republican president, that the stock market would do very well, but it's just the opposite, actually. I found doing some research, somebody had gone over the last 100 years, and Democratic presidents have actually, over their terms of leadership, have had an 82% return on the market average.
Wow.
Republicans are about 45%.
Wow, that is interesting.
Which surprised me.
Yeah,
because I would have thought it would have been just the opposite, because Republicans are considered business friendly and things along that line. Now, what I will say is, going back and looking at that as well, there's been more Democratic presidents, so it's given them a longer time in the market to analyze that. But that still, given the fact that it was almost double, surprised me quite a bit.
Did they give a reasoning behind that?
Well, not really. And they said that generally speaking, there's what they call the presidential cycle theory. Okay, it was done by Yale Hirsch, and he found that the largest gains in a person's presidency usually came in the third year of the first term.
Okay.
Okay, so that averaged about 17%, and that's in the first term. The second term, it's down about 11%. That's the average.
Wow.
What the markets don't like is uncertainty.
Right.
And so you have a lot of volatility if you change parties in a given year, okay, in an election. So if you go from Democrats to Republicans or vice versa, there's generally a lot of volatility in the market because the markets don't like uncertainty. And when there's a change, that obviously says uncertainty. Okay.
Yeah,
and so the first term of a presidency usually is the most volatile.
That's true.
And so in the last term of a presidency, especially in the second year, when you know there's going to be a change, the market's just kind of flat because they know that there's change going to be taking place. Now, another thing that does come into play on that is, do the houses of Congress.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. Yeah.
The houses of Congress, if you have a Republican president with a Democratic Congress, obviously they're not going to be as much changes going on, because one hopefully checks the other.
Right.
But when you have a Democratic Senate and a Republican House and a Republican, all these things are factors that come into play. And so this particular year is going to be interesting, depending upon how the Now, I don't know how many, as far as the houses go, how many seats are up. This year, I don't know. Normally, it's split about 50-50 every 2 years.
Yeah, so that, I think, is going to have a big effect as well.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how the coattails drag from both of them.
Right.
Which I don't know that a lot will happen, because, like I was telling you prior to the segment, if it was up to me, I'd throw them all out and start all over again.
Exactly.
But I think that the coattails aren't going to be as strong on the first term as it is on the second term.
Right, it seems to be that way.
And especially they found out that if the market has a big gain during the president's first term, are very easily reelected because the economy's doing well and things like that. So
very interesting.
You look at that, and you look. President Reagan had the same scenario.
Yeah,
you know, where
did.
President Obama had the same scenario, did real well. Okay,
yeah.
So Bill Clinton had the same scenario. So all these things come into play. You know, I'm looking at where we are today. You know, we're going through 8 years of President Obama. There's going to be a change. The market's done okay. It's about time to have a correction, I would think, because this can't keep going the way that it's going. But, you know, history is not indicative of what's going to happen.
Exactly.
But
well, you know, what's interesting right now, and in fact, I kind of mentioned this, my wife and I were talking about this last night, that at both the start of Clinton's first term and Obama's first term, they had a Democratic Congress, and yet neither one of them got much done during those first 2 years when they had the Congress on their side, because you had a lot of
although we did get Obamacare through.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was a major legislation.
But, you know, 2 years into it, and this happened with Reagan and all, the houses flip over.
Yeah, that was an interesting scenario, both with President Clinton and President Obama. There's the fact that in 1994, Newt Gingrich came out with this contract with America, was able to take the House back. Okay, President Obama's had 2 bad re-election cycles where not only is the House and the Senate come back over to him, you know, so. Or to the Republicans, I should say. And so, you know, it's interesting to, depending upon how the midterm elections will affect
usually
that.
The telling point.
Yeah. If you've got a president that's doing well and everything, midterm elections are going to be in his favor. Obviously, there were some vast differences on whether or not Obamacare was good or bad for the country, and the midterm elections obviously illustrated that.
Yeah, they did.
So you kind of got to take that into account as well.
So you would in a sense, and I'm not taking any sides here, but as far as kind of what you're saying, if
I'm not saying if there's research has been
saying. The research would say that if Clinton was elected and the House stayed Republican, things would pretty much be on an even keel, because that's exactly what it is now. Right.
There'll be a little bit just because they don't know President Clinton.
Yeah.
You know.
But if you had Trump elected, and who knows what would happen with the House. If it stayed Republican or it flipped. Usually they do not flip. They flip more in midterm. Then the uncertainty would be there for a lot of reasons.
The big uncertainty is obviously interest rates.
Yeah.
You know, what's you know, the new administration going to do with interest rates? Because interest rates drive the markets. And if you have interest rates starting to go up again, that's going to drive the market negatively, because businesses are going to be paying higher for their loans. The cost of debt is going to go up for the government. Okay, so
exactly.
But we can't keep doing what we're doing and printing money. You know, I mean, it's just we're at $20 trillion in debt. On the other hand, if the interest rates go up, how are we going to service that $20 trillion? It's going to take much more of our GNP to service that debt. So we're kind of on this, you know, damned if you do, damned if you don't type of thing. But I think we're in a false interest rate environment right now, to where they're significantly keeping interest rates low because of the debt that we've got.
And of course, you know, the savers would like to see the interest rates go up, but of course, as you well know,
depends on which side of the table you sit on.
If the interest rates do go up, the savings account interest rates don't go up nearly as much or up as quickly. It's like gas prices.
Yeah, they tend to go up much quicker than they do come down. You know, so it's interesting. But you know, that's just a theory, the presidential cycle theory. You know, and so I think a lot of it has to do. We've had ever since 2008, we really haven't had a bad market, so to speak. We've had some that haven't done a whole lot. You know, but the last year or two. But then we saw in 2013, 2014, the market did very well. You know, so we've got to have some kind of correction here in the next little while. I don't know if the election is going to give it a reason to. But it'll obviously depend upon, you know, Hillary claims to say that she's going to go in and clean up Wall Street. Well, obviously that would have an impact on the market.
Yeah, exactly.
Whether or not that happens or not, we don't know.
That's true. Any seminars coming up? Anything?
We're kind of in a vacation mode here during the month of August. We had one in July, but August we kind of take a deep breath and sit back a little bit and let things settle down. Then we start up again in the middle of September.
Okay. Let me ask you another question. I know you've touched on this before. Obviously, you're going to have people that are going to come to you and talk about shifting their retirements accounts, what's the best for them. But you offer other opportunities too. In fact, if somebody wants to come in and talk to you about setting up a trust or doing like that.
We have an in-house estate planning attorney that can help our clients. We had a lady in yesterday. She had some questions about titling her house. She thought her house that she'd inherited with her brother was in her trust, and I pointed out to her, based upon the paperwork she'd given me, that it was in her and her brother's name. And so, there's a lot of things that came into play there that she didn't like, because if one of them passed away, her share would go to her brother, and she wants it to go to her children.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of technical things that we can kind of maybe point out, and it's just not retirement planning, but maybe some other issues that we can talk to them about as well.
Yeah, exactly. Keep that in mind, folks. Dan and all his staff and family are just right up the road. They are off of Cerro. They're by the Social Security office in Mission Viejo, not far away. 859-8900 is, 949, of course, is the number. SterlingFA.com. And if you want to email Dan, you can email him at dan@sterlingfa.com. Maybe you have a question, you want to set up an appointment.
First consultation's absolutely free. We're just getting to know each other.
Exactly.
So.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, Ken.
All right, have a good.
Get your holiday shirt on, or your summer shirt, Hawaiian shirt on again.
All right, you take care, and we'll be right back.